Hello, this is Danilo Moroni for the second installment on the Bibliotheca Walleriana. Today I'm going to be talking about a box of correspondence to Dr. Waller. Dr. Waller lived from 1875 to 1955. Most of the correspondence came from the last 20 years of his life. One of the most important things that I discovered through reading the letters was how World War II impacted everybody around him, all his colleagues, his friends, himself. For example, Emil Starkenstein, one of the first people to write a description of his library, was persecuted, hunted down by the Nazis, and eventually died in a concentration camp in 1942. There was also correspondence between Harvey Cushing, John Fulton, and Arnold C. Klebs. Cushing was a neurosurgeon, one of the pioneers of neurosurgery, and an avid book collector, and probably one of Waller's closest friends in his life. And John F. Fulton was a protege of Cushing, also a book collector, and helped immensely with the Waller catalog, the two-volume catalog that came out in 1955. And then Arnold C. Klebs from Switzerland was an expert on tuberculosis, also a book collector, and the three of them formed what's called the Trinitarian Plan, which was the foundation of the Yale Medical Library. Another interesting train of thought that runs through the letters was the stolen copy of Waller's 1628 edition of William Harvey, which was a seminal book describing and proving the circulation of the blood in the human body, at least by Western standards. Arne Holmqvist, a young pharmacist, had stolen books from Waller's colleague and friend, Sir Geoffrey Keynes, and then eventually it landed in Waller's home for a second time and stole this book. And there were several letters describing the adventures of trying to reclaim the book, which he finally did. Another fascinating part of the correspondence was Waller's lifelong love for autographs and autograph collection. He would use these to trade items or to purchase books. At one point, he actually had 2 autographed letters by Michelangelo Buonarroti, the famous sculptor of the David. He also had in his possession, I think, an autograph by Raphael, another Renaissance painter. As I mentioned in my first video, there were autographs of Mahatma Gandhi and Tagore, and these letters describe how he reached out to a missionary physician in India who managed to get a hold of these items, which were very scarce. So that was fascinating to read about as well. And one of the most tragic parts of all was, as I mentioned earlier, Emil Starkenstein, who had written a short description of his library called Der Arzt und sein Buch, or something like that, the surgeon or the physician and his book collection. So as the Nazis were closing in on him and he was sent off to the concentration camps, he became increasingly despondent and tried to figure out what to do with his collection. It was dispersed, and I think ultimately ended up with the family name again, with his family. Waller's humanitarianism came through. He managed to secure the safe passage of Starkenstein's daughter to Sweden, and I think she and her family have survived through these years. Starkenstein's son, unfortunately, was also perished in the Holocaust. And finally, there were 2 items that were very interesting. One was the Swedish mystic Swedenborg, and also letters written by Martin Luther, the founder of Lutheranism. And finally, I actually managed to find in this collection of correspondence an autograph letter by Wilhelm Röntgen, the discoverer of X-rays. So these letters were fascinating in their scope, and this is just touching on the tip of the iceberg. There's so much else in there, but at least I would give you an idea of what we could find in trying to delineate some of the key aspects of Dr. Waller's life. Thank you very much for listening. Aloha.